Colin McGuigan, IFLTV, delighted to be joined by Steven Espinoza. Steven, massive fight, but not only the main event, this card's actually turned into a really, really good card on Saturday night. Just talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, look, Benavidez Morel speaks for itself. It's one of the best fights that can be made in boxing, that's no exaggeration. But I look at this, and as good as Figueroa Fulton was, as many punches there were, as good a stylistic matchup, the one that I think could steal the show is Pitbull versus Fierro. You have two Mexican fighters. You've got two guys, and hearing from Fierro ahead of the fight, he is not hesitating at all. He's not worried about Pitbull's power. He's not worried about his style. I think this is going to be one of those rock'em sock'em robots matches from the opening bell. And so I think all of that. But again, been a lot of good cards. And Saudi money has definitely raised the bar in terms of how you can matchmake cards. But as this card is structured, I'd put it up as next to just about anything in terms of the quality up and down the card.
Benavidez has come out this week and said that he was offered the Canelo fight. Were you involved in the discussions of that one? And then when it actually came to it, was it Canelo that said no?
I did hear about that. I was not directly involved. There were discussions. I'm not sure how far it actually got, but there's always discussions. I mean, look, and part of your job, the media's job, is to sniff these out. But there's a lot of hypotheticals that are always discussed. So I don't think it got even to the point where it's like this guy turned it down or that guy turned it down or whatever it was. There were exploratory discussions, and Canelo got a once in a lifetime offer. And I don't begrudge him at all. I think anyone in his shoes, they got the kind of offer that Canelo got from the Saudis. Clearly overcome his hesitation about the weight and everything else. And, that's will be a massive, massive fight.
What does the rest of the year look like for PBC and in particular Amazon pay-per-view and Amazon Prime? Because obviously DAZN have kind of mainstayed themselves as a global home of boxing now with so much on every week. How do Amazon kind of combat that?
Well, I think, look, it depends what you're looking for, at least for here in the U.S. The DAZN, the perception of DAZN is that it's largely European-based and, a little bit slanted, to the British in particular. With the Riyadh cards that are on DAZN, you get a little bit of anything. But I think, the only thing left for DAZN to do to continue to build is really to lock down more of the U.S. market and the U.S. market. So, that means Top Rank and PBC. And, they're both pretty happy where they are right now. Things change. But I think in terms of the Amazon schedule, obviously Tank is a big fight on March 1. The Fundora fight, I think, will get finalized and announced fairly quickly.
Who's a likely opponent in that one?
I've seen a couple of, I'm not going to say it. I've seen, I think, most of the people writing about it, have it good. But it's not done till it's done. But I think most of the reports that I've seen are pretty accurate. And then beyond that, we'll see what Canelo does in May. Who he does it with, who he does it
Is it likely that Canelo goes the night after the Riyadh season show in New York? Or do you avoid that?
It's a good question. It's a very good question. Because, both of those are massive, massive cards, and it would be a disservice to everybody to have them both competing. So I think that's a logjam that needs to be cleared one way or the other.
Is there a line of discussion there between you guys, the Riyadh season guys, to kind of say, look, let's do these on alternate weekends?
There hasn't been, there may be in the future, but look, Canelo is very proud of his ownership of that day, and there's been other times when he's gone head to head with other pay-per-views because he considers that a point of pride for him in going through that. So I think, we may be stuck there. I know that there are already arrangements that are getting made for the DAZN card in New York City, and obviously Canelo's very attached to those dates, so we may be on a collision course.
Stephen, I want to get your thoughts on a few things. Eddie Hearn said that Naio Inoue should be removed from the pound for pound ratings because he believes that he's ducking MJ, his fighter, but also the only credible opponent he really has fought is Stephen Fulton. What do you make of those comments?
Look, I think it's a little bit of revisionist history, because there are certainly quality guys that have come in and people said, like, this is the guy, this guy should give him some trouble, and he doesn't. And I think after the fact, there's a tendency to say, well, that guy wasn't as good as we thought he was just because Nunez was dominant. I mean, we saw that with Mayweather as well. So I think part of it is, ducking MJ. I don't think I understand that's Eddie doing his job and doing the promoter, but MJ's hasn't gotten the kind of stature that I think people are ducking him yet. Look, Nunez is very happy, and he's got a very lucrative deal out in Japan. That means he doesn't travel a lot of other places. He's got a huge fan base, a very lucrative deal. He's making a lot of money there. And, if you want to fight him, for the most part, you're going to go over there and do it. And that's his prerogative. So, I don't think that fight will be problematic to get made as long as MJ's going to realize he's probably going to have to go do it in Japan.
2 more from me. Joshua Wilder looks like it might happen next. Someone you've worked with closely in Deontay Wilder. What do you make of that fight?
Look, it doesn't have the shine that it once did, but I still like it. I still think it's a fascinating fight. And sometimes we've seen some of the fighters some of the fights that have turned to be the most memorable are fighters that are, a bit vulnerable. And you can look at both of their recent fights, and point out some obvious vulnerabilities. I think it's going to be a fun fight. I think it's going to be a massive fight. And I think, you get 2 heavyweights like that, regardless of whatever losses they take, it's still a massive fight, and I would love to see it.
Canelo Crawford, will there be discussions with Riyadh season to maybe do some sort of promotion on Amazon as well as the Zone? Because we can see in the UK a lot of broadcasters work together. Would that be within your kind of remit to do something like that?
It's really the Zone's call. They've got and the Saudis have an output deal and arrangement with the Zone as their official distributor. If they'd like to expand the base, I think it would make a lot of sense. But that's happened in some cases in the past. Obviously in the Munguia fight, it has happened. I think Berlanga as well. So it's not unprecedented. It certainly could happen.
Gervonta Davis likely to sell out March 1st, and do you believe that we see that Shakur fight before the end of the year?
I do think he sells out. Like, he's East Coast fan base is sort of his hometown fan base, whether it's DC, whether it's Baltimore, whether it's Barclays, where he hasn't been since I believe 2017, the Pedraza fight. And look, it's already very close to a sellout. Like, it's going to only get bigger and bigger. I know, having spoken to Tank, he really doesn't want to do anything that's less than top tier. So I think he's going to insist on a fight like Shakur, something of that magnitude. Maybe it's Shakur, maybe it's Ryan Garcia rematch, maybe it's something like that. But I don't think we'll see him in anything short of those kinds of fights going forward.
Well, Stephen, really appreciate your time as always, and look forward to catching up again. Appreciate it, man.
All right.